I remember many first days of school and that empty feeling. I remember the clock from 3 to 3:30. I remember when girls wore cardigan sweaters on backwards. I remember thin gold chains with one little pearl hanging from them. I remember ponytails. I remember when hoodie boys wore blue jeans so low that the principal had to put a limit on that. I believe it was 3 inches below the navel. I remember shirt collars turned up and back. I remember pericomo shirts and pericomo sweaters. I remember ducktails. I remember many Sunday afternoon dinners of fried chicken or pot roast. I remember my first oil painting. It was of a chartreuse green field of grass with a little Italian village far away. I remember many Septembers. I remember one day in gym class when my name was called out, I just couldn't say here. I stuttered so badly that sometimes words just wouldn't come out of my mouth. I had to run around the field many times. I remember one very cold and black night on the beach alone with Frank O'Hara. He ran into the ocean naked, and it scared me to death. I remember lightning. I remember wild red poppies in Italy. I remember selling blood every 3 months on 2nd Avenue. I remember a boy I once made love with, and after it was all over, he asked me if I believed in God. I remember when I thought that anything old was very valuable. I remember Black Beauty. I remember when I thought that Betty Grable was beautiful. I remember when I thought that I was a great artist. I remember when I wanted to be rich and famous, and I still do. I remember Miss Peabody, my grade school librarian. I remember Miss Fly, my grade school science teacher. I remember a very poor boy who had to wear his sister's blouses to school. I remember Easter suits. I remember taffeta and the way it sounded. I remember The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. I remember trying to visualize my mother and father actually fucking. I remember my collection of Nova Scotia pamphlets and travel information. I remember my collection of Modest Because magazine ads. I remember Saturday night baths and Sunday morning comics. I remember bunk beds. I remember shower curtains with angelfish on them. I remember Tab Hunter's famous pajama party. I remember Mammy cookie jars, tomato soup, wax fruit, and church keys. I remember very long gloves. I remember very old people when I was very young. Their houses smelled funny. I remember one old lady who, on Halloween, you had to sing or dance or do something for before she would give you anything. I remember chalk. I remember when green blackboards were new. I remember a boy. He worked in a store. I spent a fortune buying things from him I didn't want. Then one day, he wasn't there anymore. I remember how sorry I felt for my father's sister. I thought she was always on the verge of crying, when actually she just had hay fever. I remember the organ music from As the World Turns. I remember daydreams of dying and how unhappy everybody would be. I remember daydreams of being a movie star. I remember daydreams of committing suicide and of the letter I would leave behind. I remember daydreams of being a dancer and being able to leap higher than anyone thought was humanly possible. I remember daydreams of being a singer all alone on a big stage with no scenery, just one spotlight on me, singing my heart out and moving my audience to total tears of love and affection. I remember the tiger lilies alongside the house. I found a dime among them once.